Welcome to the artist's mind, an immersive experience into the feminine psyche, where art is found to be the core of our existence. A space that invites you into a deeper intimacy with the creation of your life. This is not a podcast, but a journey. A weaving of poetry, story, metaphor, and sound to awaken the artist within. I'm your guide, Kaylee Korfike, and it's my prayer that this space feels both wildly abstract and deeply practical, and everything in between. I'm not here to explain, but to express, to show rather than tell. This is a living audio diary, a space created not only to help you birth your creations into form, but to turn yourself and your life into an offering. I hope you find threads within my journey to pull on and weave within your own. Let the journey begin. Welcome to episode 1, the art of wintering. And I want to go ahead and set the stage for this episode today because, like I mentioned in the introduction, this is not always just simply a podcast, but more of a journey. And today's episode really capitalizes on the energy of winter in the sense that we are going to draw inside of ourselves. So feel free to pause this if you need to and grab anything that makes you feel the most comfortable, soft, inward, relaxed, whatever reminds you of the beauty of winter. Whether you are in the literal season of winter, as we are kind of at the cusp, the last month of winter here, or perhaps you're finding this episode at a time in your life where you are experiencing an inward calling, an inner winter. Even if it's a different season, oftentimes we find ourselves in wintering phases, even in the midst of spring or summer or autumn. Or maybe you're finding this episode at a time in your life that is just really calling you to slow down. So whatever the reason, set a space for yourself today to come inward and feel the most cozy, the most comfortable, the most relaxed. You might want to grab a cup of tea or hot chocolate. You might want to grab incense or light a candle. Wrap yourself in blankets. You can feel free to just curl into your bed. Grab some headphones. This one will definitely be more of an inward vibe today. And whenever you're ready, I will meet you right back here. So wherever you are, I invite you to just settle in. Wrap yourself in blankets. Curl into your inner world. Make yourself comfortable. And let yourself close down your eyes and slip away with me. Let the world around you fall away for a moment. And come inside. You're invited to set down your bags of everything you think you need to tend to or get to later. And for this time together, just go ahead and let everything else fall away. Let every cell in your body relax. Give yourself over to the soft embrace of winter's call. If you find your breath, in that steady inhale and exhale, see if you can travel on the current of that breath. So softening the edges between each inhale and exhale. And see how deeply you can arrive right here. Imagine that you could follow your breath like a bridge. Each inhale delivering you a little deeper into an inward world made just for you. Every exhale, feeling the gravity of your body melting into the surface beneath you. How soft and open can you become? Notice how easy it is in this moment to just let everything else go. And in this world that is all your own, travel with me. Travel with me to a time before glowing screens and fluorescent lights, when access wasn't instant but earned. A time before time sped up. A time when truths were simple and life was pure. A time when things moved at nature's pace, your pace. It's late afternoon in the heart of winter, just before dusk. And you're curled up in the window nook, wrapped in a thick woven blanket, gazing out over a field that merges with the trees at the edge of the forest in a blanket of freshly fallen snow. A fire is crackling in the background, warming the room, and the smell of fresh bread wafts through the room from the hearth. The sun is fading, leaving a wash of golden light glistening on the icy ground outside, as you remember the field of flowers that once covered the same grounds only months before. A steaming cup of tea sits in your hands as you feel it spreading its warmth through your palms and stretching its way into your heart like a soft, tender invitation from winter herself. You close your eyes, letting the crackling fire pull you deeper into winter's dreamtime, drifting into reflections of all this last season has been. The creative ideas received and planted. The creations that you've fed and nurtured, the ones that have blossomed over time. Perhaps the creations that weren't watered or given the right environment to thrive, and the ones that wilted away. You allow your mind to drift to the harvest of all you have brought to fruition, all the versions of yourself you have met and revealed in the process. And as winter wraps herself around you and the pace of life slows, how do you sense the inner fire of your creativity? How does your life force feel in this inward season? And with the most gentle honesty, what can you feel this season asking of you to prepare for the future months to come? January 2026, Sebastopol, California. I sit at my computer, watching the little blinking line that taunts me, as if saying, "Come on, start. Where do you want this to go?" My mind flexes its muscles and types out the beginning of half sentences that feel dull and performative, lacking the depth I know I can write with. I hit the delete button again and again, back to zero. I stare blankly at my computer screen, in a moment of honesty with myself, as I realize I have no inspiration, no fire in me today, nothing pulling me into creation the way I often do. I feel the subtle agitation in my chest, the tattoo of a fictional societal story that I need to get this episode out to the world before I lose momentum. A sense of urgency whispers from my mind to my body, as if trying to get me to take the bait. I smile to myself, thinking, how fitting to be creating an episode about winter and then finding myself in exactly the experience I was aiming to address. I close my eyes and leave my thoughts behind for a moment, listening. As the outer world of the bustling cafe fades away around me, a song comes on in my headphones. The piano keys seem to be landing somewhere inside of me that I can't quite place, as I drift into sensation. The land beyond logic. Not quite here, not quite there. I let my awareness travel, landing in a memory of my dad, the piano pulling me into a memory of Christmas time in my childhood home. I feel tears tease the back of my eyelids, an emotion beginning to ripple through my chest as I land in the understanding of where I'm being taken. Death, grief, decay. The aspects of winter that our society has not yet made room for. When I lost my dad 2 years ago, I met grief for the first time in my life. And I found myself in an inner winter, even in the midst of spring. I found myself in a liminal space, a timelessness that took me outside of the usual pace of life. I remember feeling this surreal, distorted feeling of reality where the pace of life continued on around me for everyone else, but I was hanging in this space just outside of it, like an alien or a stranger in my own life. Maybe you can relate. Things that used to inspire me lost their zest. Flavors of my favorite foods stopped tasting good. Everything felt watered down. Things I used to worry about seemed to stop mattering. And though grief and winter are not married by any means, they are a love affair that sneak around together behind closed doors more than society might have us know. Grief is no stranger to those who give themselves over to the fullness of winter's embrace. Whether it's the loss of a loved one or the loss of a part of ourselves, there can be a deep melancholy or a full grieving process that accompanies the coldest months as we come to meet the underworld of what the year has stripped us of and what it asks us to leave behind for the year to come. Our lives are full of wintering, whether in a literal sense, or a time of deep grieving or loss, or burnout or sickness, or simply a chapter of life that pulls us into a vast inner landscape. The essence of winter asks us to undress ourselves of old identities, to fall into dreamtime and inward exploration, and hibernate in a cocoon of deeply needed rest. Winter, in all of its forms, is a medicine that nature offers us again and again in the rhythmic pulse of our living. There's a quote from Catherine May's book, Wintering, The Power of Rest and Retreat in Difficult Times, that says, plants and animals don't fight the winter. They don't pretend it's not happening and attempt to carry on living the same lives they lived in the summer. They prepare. They adapt. They perform extraordinary acts of metamorphosis to get them through. Wintering is a time of withdrawing from the world, maximizing scant resources, carrying out acts of brutal efficiency, and vanishing from sight. But that's where the transformation occurs. Winter is not the death of the life cycle, but its crucible. Once we stop wishing it were summer, winter can be a glorious season in which the world takes on the sparse beauty, and even the pavement sparkles. It's a time for reflection and recuperation, for slow replenishment, for putting your house in order, doing these deeply unfashionable things, slowing down, letting your spare time expand, getting enough sleep, resting is a radical act now, but it's essential. This is a crossroads we all know, a moment when you need to shed a skin. If you do, you'll expose all those painful nerve endings and feel so raw that you'll need to take care of yourself for a while. If you don't, then that skin will harden around you. It's one of the most important choices you'll ever make. We look around us and we see a modern world that slows down for nothing. The rat race doesn't sleep. The American dream doesn't cater to the cadence of natural time. And I don't know, I think there's an underlying grief in us from the dissonance between knowing in our bodies this seasonal, cyclical living that's so natural to us and living in a world that doesn't respect that same rhythm. I wonder if right now you imagined yourself sitting at a table, sitting across from the personification of winter. What would she look like? What would she feel like? And what is your relationship to her? When winter comes each year, how do you meet the season? Is it with resistance, reluctance? Do you continue to effort your way through a season that asks you to slow down? Do you change your pace at all? Or perhaps you meet winter with open arms, finding your pace as the world slows down around you, welcoming the slowness and the shift in your creative fire. And if you took a minute right now to have a conversation internally with winter, what would you say to her? What would she say to you? So what is the connection between winter and our artistic process, our creative fire, our life force? I think there's probably an expectation in many of us, similar to the stories that we have from society that tell us to continue at the same pace as summer or spring or autumn, that our creativity should look the same, that our output should equal the other seasons, that our creative fire should burn as brightly, but that's typically not the case. And to go into this a little deeper, I want to share a story with you. Once when I was traveling in Guatemala, I was working at a retreat center. And this center was for solitary retreats and darkroom retreats. And often people came there to experience multiple days of silence with themselves. The darkroom itself was complete darkness, sensory deprivation, which may sound like an extreme and is, but was something that I was really fascinated with when I first started working there. And because I was one of the people taking our guests into the darkroom for sometimes, 3, 4, 5 days, sometimes weeks at a time, my manager thought that it would be helpful for me to understand the process myself so that I could be the best space holder for that experience. It's not really a clock in, clock out of job where you just, get through the tasks of the day. It's very personal, and the experiences that people have in there are quite profound. So if you don't really understand it, it's difficult to hold the space for somebody as they're going in or coming out. So I got the opportunity while I was working there to do 2 different retreats, maybe 3. I think I did a 2-day, a 3-day, and a 1-day that were incredible and absolutely loved the experience. I think because I was living in a country that didn't really have a winter. And I actually lived in Central America for 3 years, and it wasn't until I came back to the United States that I realized just how important winter is for our system. That even if it rains, if it's still warm and tropical, it doesn't quite have the same effect as a true winter. And after I finished working at that retreat center, I actually went to a different center in Mexico to do my own 11-day silent retreat. I did 11 days in silence. 5 of those were in the dark, in the middle of the retreat, and completely by myself. The only person around was the space holder of the retreat center. And it just happened that we actually ended up being the only people on site for that time that I was there. There was no other guests. It was, I think it was October that I went. It was just starting to get cold. And I'll set the tone for you a little bit here. It was I'm sitting right now at the edge of a forest that looks really similar, which is pretty cool. It was this retreat center hanging over the side of this ravine that went into a forest. So it's at the cusp of this forest, just outside of San Cristobal in Mexico, but far away from any city noise, very, very, very quiet. And this environment was one that has hosted people for years of solitary, silent, darkroom retreats. So there's a vibe there of this very inward wintering. Probably regardless of what season you go, this would be a place that would emanate that kind of inward contemplative energy. And everything about my experience there felt like an inner winter. The silence, the dark, the being alone with myself, with no technology, with nothing really to distract me. I think I let myself read for like the last couple of days, but most of the time I didn't even let myself read. I was in pure creation mode. I didn't consume much of anything. I think I even fasted for quite a few of the days. And this was a time in my life that I remember understanding the power of inner winter and the power that it can hold for our creative process. And I think it taught me something through the extreme, because extremes they're not always beneficial for us. 11 days in silence and 5 of those days in the dark might not be the answer for a lot of people out there. But for me, having lived in the United States in kind of this very fast-paced world and feeling very out of tune with my own rhythm and even my rhythm as an artist, it gave me an entirely new perspective on art, especially when I was in the dark. Because it wasn't like I could, paint a picture or draw, although a lot of people do try to do that in the dark. It wasn't like I was writing. You can't do much in the dark, at least not well. And it's a very meditative and dream time kind of energy, mirroring the season of winter. And I remember that the deeper and deeper that I got inside of myself during that time, and I will say the first couple days were uncomfortable, as they always are, the stripping away of all the stimulation and everything that we are avoiding in our everyday lives. It all comes up in the dark and in silence. When there's nothing to distract us, we come to meet the things that we ignore or avoid or, go to coping mechanisms in order to get away from in our day-to-day life. Yeah, there's no hiding from yourself when you're sitting in the dark for 5 days with no one to talk to, no phone to look at, no podcasts, no videos, no music, no nothing. Just you and your breath and your thoughts. And at some point, even your thoughts, they really shift. It's a pretty amazing experience of what happens when your visual field is taken away. And that's a whole nother conversation. But what I found was that the way that my creativity shifted by having that slow pace, and the way that my nervous system got to really unwind itself, it opened me up to this experience of my creative fire that wasn't this outward yang expression through my voice and through actions and everything. It was this dream time, this like liminal kind of space in between consciousness and subconscious realms where so many ideas flooded into my world that were original. Like they weren't just cookie cutter things of like, oh, I saw that on Instagram because somebody else did it, or I watched a video and it inspired me to do this. It was more unique to me because it was coming from my own inner landscape. And in that slowness and the rest, I mean, I slept so much. It's amazing how your body realizes just how tired you are when you're removed from other people and removed from the auras of everyone else and removed from just the pace of our society. I slept so much that my body just like melted open, and there was just this renewed sense of creativity where I felt like I was adding into this investment, this bank account that I knew would pay off when the next season came. And maybe if you have really felt that power of winter in yourself, if you've really let yourself slow down to natural time, I'm sure that you've also experienced this feeling of abundance that comes internally. It's like you can feel almost this through line that you're tapping into, that come spring, come summer, you're going to be receiving the bounty, the blossoming of everything that you're giving that devotion of stillness to. So for me, that was a time that really exposed me to what inner winter was, that it doesn't always have to be the season itself. It can be a time in our life that we just feel that we're being drawn inward, or that our creativity is wanting to take on a different texture, that it's wanting to be more inward and dreamy and introspective, and that you're being called to receive something from another space inside of yourself, rather than in this constant consumption mode that we can easily get into. And I would love to share here a little excerpt from the book Yin Mysticism by Brijna Magnuson, which is one of my favorite kind of yin oracles and books on femininity. And she has this great chapter on winter, and actually a whole portion of her book is dedicated to the inner seasons and how we can align with nature in order to, well, the way she describes it is so that we can receive the most out of each future season by honoring the theme of the season that we are in and working with it rather than against it. So I'm going to read to you these couple pages because I think it gives a great understanding of not just winter, but the way that our creative fire works during this time. So Brijna states, the inner fire is the enthusiasm that lights creativity, joy, turn on, and excitement. In the winter, this inner fire must be kept at a steady burn. Keeping the inner fire lit means we have the juices of our life's work flowing and generating as an inner process, albeit slowly and intimately. While the inner fire may not appear as any kind of outward movement, that is because in the winter, action, or yang, moves into the realm of introspection. Not only does this keep us metaphorically warm by being ablaze with inner creativity, interest, and contemplation, but it can also literally heat up the body through the winter. During the winter's retreat, we nourish the yang fires within us. We stay warm, joyful, and creative through the dark months. In winter, we dance around the inner fire. Play and labor have become internal. If this description sounds like a foreign ideal, perhaps the seasons are where attention to cycles would be the most beneficial. She goes on later in this chapter to describe the work of winter as 4 different ideals. The first being rest, recuperation, repair, and cooling down. The second, creative contemplation, stoking of the inner fire. The third one is internal work, processing, healing, and integrating. And the fourth is reflection, dreaming, and introspecting. And she speaks in depth about each of these 4, but the one that I wanted to read was the one on contemplating creativity. If the second function of winter, contemplating creativity, is not met, then you might expect that creative juices may begin to run dry. Creativity is cultivated differently in everyone, but many find that new ideas come when feeling relaxed and unstructured enough to play. The winter provides a perfect space to simply sit in vast, unstructured time, where ideas can manifest in a playful way. Intuition is given space to rise. It creates a vacuum for creative spirits that may want to pass through. For artists, writers, poets, and musicians who believe that they channel creative ideas through an external source, when better to listen to that source than in the quiet season? Creativity comes at all times of the year because creativity has its own unknowable cycle. However, making room for creativity to emerge from the void or subconscious is a crucial part of the creative process. In fact, I would posit that the most important part of the creative process is the slump, where no creativity seems to be coming through. The creative slump, and in other words, a creative winter, is simply the time when creativity is conceived. Creative slumps, just like winter, should be seen for what they are, the invitation of creation. During the winter months, we can paradoxically do very little, yet invite in a huge amount of creativity to conceive and gestate. In this present age, to choose to slow down and walk with winter's true pace takes an added discipline than the generations before us. To stay aligned with the natural world when everything around us screams more and faster, get it done, hurry up, asks us to deepen our intentionality and devotion. And though it may often bring grief, to feel ourselves at odds with a world that doesn't yet honor the essential nature of who we are. One thing I have found is that the more discipline something takes, often the greater the harvest it provides. I'll leave you here with a poem that I wrote during my time in silence. And I invite you, after listening, and when this episode comes to a close, to see if you can transition in a way that honors your own inner winter. If you can take something from this and contemplate or dream or reflect on what your inner season, your inner winter is asking of you, is asking of your creativity, your inner fire, your projects or ideas. What is it that this season is offering you? What is the medicine that's available when you slow down and listen, soften, and receive? So here you go. This one's called Winter's Beckoning. I'm dreaming of evergreen and pine that peek out from behind snow-capped mountains, that pledge their allegiance to the same source that peeks out from behind my eyes. I'm dreaming of redwoods rooted in the soil of my nostalgic heart, a dream of the drawn-out wedding between autumn's yawn and winter's beckoning cocoon. Oh, my soul flutters awake to the fond memories of crisp fall air that sing to my blushing cheeks. I fall into rhythmic purity with the simple crunch of colorful leaves beneath my feet. The fondness of a memory so rich it could only stem from deep, sensual presence. Mesmerized by carved remembrance of nutmeg and maple-stricken air, candy cane kisses and jack-o'-lantern adorned streets, I can almost taste the pumpkin bread and settling into the safe haven of soft fleece sheets. A full body exhale into the warm embrace of this cozy blanket hideaway. I curl into hibernation, letting go into winter's pause. Still and silent, deep inside, I die 100 different deaths. Winds whistle, storms howl, and the fireplace crackles. And I am ice, slow and quiet and listening. I allow her to show me the underbelly of my world. A setting sun becomes my lullaby as I rest my spirit and my tired bones, honoring the pause before spring dances me to life once more.